I should have known something was wrong the moment I reached for the doorknob. I live alone, and my mornings follow the same rhythm every single day. Wake up, make coffee, pack my bag, kiss my cat Milo on the head, and head out for work. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic. Just a normal routine that keeps life feeling steady. But that morning, the moment my fingers touched the cool metal of the doorknob, Milo launched himself in front of the door as if he'd been waiting for that exact moment. He wasn't just being clingy. He wasn't begging for food. His fur was puffed, his eyes wide, and he let out this low, trembling sound I had never heard from him before. A sound that didn't belong in a quiet apartment on a calm weekday morning. At first, I laughed it off. "Milo, come on," I said. But he didn't move. He planted himself like a tiny, furry guardian, blocking the door with his whole body. I tried nudging him aside gently, but he pressed back harder, almost desperate. And when I finally picked him up to move him away, he twisted in my arms and clawed at my shirt, scrambling to get back between me and the door. That was the hook. The moment everything shifted. The moment my cat refused to let me leave the house. And minutes later, I would find out exactly why. I remember standing there, confused, holding my purse in one hand and watching Milo pace anxiously by the entrance. His tail flicked rapidly from side to side, and he kept glancing at me like he was begging me to understand something he couldn't say. It shook me more than I'd like to admit. Animals sense things. We all know that. But this felt different. This felt intentional. Urgent. I crouched down and called to him softly, and he came running, bumping his head against my chest with such force it almost hurt. His whole body trembled. That's when I knew he wasn't just fussing. Something had scared him. Something outside. I reached toward the door again, slower this time, just to see what he'd do. Milo let out a sharp cry and darted forward, slapping my hand with his paw before I could touch the handle. That was it. I put my purse down. You don't ignore a reaction like that. Not from an animal who has never acted aggressively a single day in his life. So instead of leaving, I walked to the living room, trying to calm the tight knot in my stomach. Milo followed me immediately, pressing himself against my ankle like he needed constant contact to feel safe. I opened the blinds to let in some light, and just as I did, the world outside shifted. A noise echoed up the street, faint, muffled, but enough to freeze me completely. At first I thought I imagined it, but then I heard it again. A heavy thud, followed by the unmistakable scrape of something dragging gently along the concrete. I stood perfectly still. Milo pressed tighter against my leg. My apartment faces a quiet residential street. Mornings there are usually peaceful, joggers, dog walkers, the occasional neighbor heading out early for a shift. But when I peeked through the blinds, the sidewalks were empty. No movement, no footsteps. Nothing that explained those strange sounds. I checked the clock. If I didn't leave soon, I'd be late. I went back to the entrance, ignoring the goosebumps crawling up my arms, and tried again to get ready. But as soon as I reached down for my shoes, Milo placed his paw on my wrist and let out a soft whimper. It honestly broke my heart. I sat on the floor beside him, stroking his head, feeling his breath quick and shallow. "Okay," I whispered. "I'm not going anywhere yet." That's when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my neighbor, Emily, who lived 2 houses down. She almost never texted me that early, so I opened it immediately. "Hey, are you home? Don't go outside. Something weird is happening on the street. Police are driving around really slow. I'll let you know more if I hear anything." That was all she wrote. No explanation, no details. Just don't go outside. My heart started beating so fast I felt it in my ears. I looked down at Milo, who stared back at me with that same wide, frightened gaze. Suddenly, his behavior made sense. Not fully, but enough that my body reacted before my mind caught up. I backed away from the door as if it could explode at any second. I texted Emily back quickly, asking what she meant. She didn't reply. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. Meanwhile, Milo paced in circles, his ears twitching toward the windows every few seconds. I didn't know what to do. Part of me thought I was overreacting. Maybe Emily misunderstood something. Maybe Milo was just being dramatic because he sensed my tension. I even considered opening the door just a crack to take a quick look. But before I could reach for the handle again, there was a knock. Not a simple knock. Not a polite one. A slow, heavy pounding that echoed through the entire apartment. Milo's body stiffened instantly. His back arched, his pupils narrowed, and he let out a sound I had never heard come out of him. A guttural warning that sent a chill through me. I froze mid-step. Another knock came. Harder. Then a long silence. I didn't speak. I didn't breathe. I stood still for what felt like an eternity, until finally, I worked up the courage to approach the peephole. Milo raced in front of me again, blocking the door, tail puffed like a bottle brush. I carefully nudged him aside just enough to look. But when I pressed my eye to the peephole, there was no one there. Nothing but the empty hallway. I stepped back immediately, pulse racing. My apartment door has no windows. The peephole is the only way to see outside. I checked again, thinking maybe I imagined the movement of a shadow or the echo of a footstep. But no. The hallway remained empty. I reached for my phone again, hoping, desperately, that Emily had replied. Nothing. But another message did come through. Not from her. From the local community alert system that sends occasional notifications about roadwork or weather issues. This one was nothing like the others. It read, "Residents in the lakeside area, please stay indoors. Authorities are responding to a disturbance. Avoid opening doors to unknown individuals." My throat tightened. The lakeside area. That was my street. Milo pressed himself against my calf again, trembling. I scooped him into my arms without thinking, holding him close as I backed away from the door. I didn't know what was happening out there, but every part of me screamed that I needed to stay inside. Minutes passed. Long, suffocating minutes filled with silence broken only by Milo's shaky breaths. Then my phone buzzed again. It was Emily at last, but not a text. A voice message. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the play button. Something inside me warned me not to listen. Maybe because everything already felt like it belonged in a nightmare I couldn't wake from. But I pressed it anyway. What I heard made my entire body break out in cold sweat. At first it was just her breathing, shaky, uneven, like she'd been running. Then her whisper, rushed and strained. "Stay inside. Lock your door. Someone's..." The message cut off. Just static after that. I replayed it 3 times, hoping to hear something else. Anything else. But the message ended at the same fractured moment every time. I sank onto the couch, hugging Milo against my chest. My heart pounded so violently it felt like it might bruise my ribs. I didn't know what was happening on my street. But I knew, with absolute certainty, that if I had left my apartment that morning, I would have walked right into the middle of it. Whatever it was. And the only reason I didn't was Milo. I held him closer, feeling the warmth of his small body against me. He wasn't trembling anymore. Instead, he looked up at me like he was waiting for something. Like he knew this wasn't over yet. He was right, because seconds later, the hallway outside erupted in noise. First a sharp bang, then another. Then a deep, echoing shout from somewhere down the corridor. A voice I couldn't make out, followed by the unmistakable sound of frantic footsteps. Milo scrambled out of my arms and hid behind the couch. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I didn't move. I didn't dare. Something, or someone, ran past my apartment door so quickly the force of it rippled under the gap at the bottom. My breath caught in my throat. Then silence. A thick, unnatural silence that felt heavier than the noise. I stayed frozen for minutes, maybe longer, my eyes glued to the door, waiting for another knock, another voice, another message. But nothing happened, not for a while. I thought the worst had passed. I was wrong, because soon, the doorknob began to turn, slowly, deliberately, as if someone on the other side was testing it. I felt my body go cold. Milo hissed from behind the couch. The door was locked. Thank God. But hearing the handle twist, hearing the faint metal click as pressure built against it, it made me feel like the air had been punched out of my lungs. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't even breathe. The handle rattled harder, then stopped. Another silence stretched through the apartment. My ears rang with the force of the blood rushing through my veins. I couldn't tell if minutes passed or seconds. Then, a whisper. Right against the door. A voice so faint, so strained, I almost wondered if I imagined it. "Let me in." I stumbled backward, my entire body shaking violently. That voice, I knew it. It was Emily's. But something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Her tone wasn't normal. It wasn't scared or frantic. It was empty, detached, as if someone had hollowed out the emotion and left only the shell of her voice behind. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I just stood frozen as Milo crept out slightly from behind the couch, growling in a way I had never heard from him before. Another whisper came. "Please. Open the door." My instinct screamed at me not to. Every fiber of my being locked me in place. Then, a soft scraping sound against the wood, like fingernails dragging down the surface of the door. My breath caught so sharply it hurt, and before I could even think of what to do next, my phone rang. The caller ID flashed. Emily. My heart dropped into my stomach. I stared at the phone, then at the door, then back at the phone. Very slowly, I answered it. "Hello?" I whispered. Emily's real voice, frantic, panicked, breathless, burst through the line. "Don't open your door. I'm not there. Stay away from the door." My entire body went rigid, and then the scraping stopped. I didn't even realize I had stopped breathing until the scraping abruptly went silent. My phone trembled in my hands as I pressed it tighter to my ear. My eyes locked on the door like it might burst open at any second. "Emily?" I whispered, afraid that any sound might provoke whatever stood on the other side. Her voice was ragged, shaky, nothing like the empty, emotionless whisper I'd just heard through the door. "I'm at the community office," she said quickly. "The police told everyone on this side of the street to stay inside. They said someone's been walking around pretending to be neighbors, trying to get people to open their doors." My knees nearly gave out. Someone pretending, using voices they shouldn't be able to use, voices they could only know by listening, watching, waiting. A cold wave rolled over me. "What do they want?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I don't know," Emily replied, panic sharpening her words. "But they said to stay completely silent if anyone tries to get in. Don't respond to any voices, even if they sound familiar." I stared at the door, at the deadbolt that suddenly felt too flimsy, too fragile. My cat Milo crept back into the room, his tail low but his steps careful and deliberate. He positioned himself right between me and the door, like a barrier. Like he thought he was strong enough to shield me from anything. The turning of the doorknob, the whisper, the scraping. It all replayed in my head on a loop. "Emily," I whispered. "Someone was just at my door." There was a pause so sharp it felt like the world held its breath with me. "Did you answer?" "No," I said. "Milo didn't let me open the door this morning. He wouldn't let me leave. He kept blocking." Milo's sudden growl cut through the air. I hadn't even noticed the shadow creeping back under the crack at the bottom of the door. Emily must have heard the change in my breathing, because she suddenly raised her voice. "Move away from the door. Now!" I backed up instantly, scooping Milo into my arms even though he squirmed, wanting to stay in front of me. I stepped behind the couch, heart pounding so violently the room blurred at the edges. The shadow lingered, not moving, not leaving, just existing there, like it knew exactly where I was. Then, a soft tapping, not knocking, not pounding, just the gentle, rhythmic tap of nails against wood. Tap, tap, tap. I felt Milo tense against me. His heartbeat raced as fast as mine. The tapping stopped, but the shadow remained. I didn't dare speak. I didn't dare breathe. Minutes passed like hours until, finally, slowly, the shadow pulled back. I didn't relax until it disappeared completely. Even then, I stayed frozen. "Is it gone?" Emily asked softly. "I think so," I murmured. "Stay inside. Don't open that door for anything." Her voice shook. "They're checking each house. The officers said they're close. Just stay hidden until they say it's safe." I clung to her words like a lifeline. When the call ended, the silence in the apartment felt louder than the tapping had. My mind kept imagining footsteps returning, the doorknob twisting, the whisper calling my name again. But Milo refused to let anything catch me off guard. He stayed planted in front of me, ears alert, tail flicking, eyes locked on the door with fierce, unblinking focus. I'd never seen him like that. My sweet, gentle cat looked like he was ready to take on whatever danger stood outside. Hours passed, the longest hours of my life. Every creak made me jump. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps. Milo didn't rest once. Not until I finally heard the muffled crackle of radios outside, followed by calm, commanding voices echoing through the hallway. I approached the door with slow, careful steps. Through the peephole, I saw uniformed officers moving down the hall, knocking on doors, checking locks, speaking in clear, steady voices. One of them knocked on mine. "Police, you're safe now." My hand shook as I unlocked the door and opened it just an inch. 2 officers stood there, real officers, badges visible, posture calm and steady. I opened the door wider. "You okay, ma'am?" one asked. I nodded, but tears gathered in my eyes. "Someone tried to get in," I whispered. He exchanged a grim look with the other officer. "We've had a few reports like that this morning. Someone's been going door to door. They've already been detained." Detained. Not far from my building. Not far from where I would have been walking that morning. I closed my eyes for a moment, overwhelmed by the weight of everything I had narrowly avoided. When I opened them again, Milo was sitting behind my legs, watching the officers with narrowed eyes, as if still assessing whether they were a threat. I stepped back inside, locking the door after they left. I sank onto the couch, my breath finally releasing in shaky bursts. Milo slowly approached me, his body softening now that the danger had passed. He nuzzled my hand before curling into my lap, letting out the first calm purr I'd heard all day. I held him close, tears spilling freely down my cheeks. He had known. He had sensed something I couldn't. He had stopped me from walking straight into the middle of something dangerous, something that could have changed my life in ways I can't even fully understand. All because he wouldn't let me leave the house. All because he protected me. That night, I gave him extra treats, extra cuddles, extra everything. But nothing felt like enough. How do you thank a creature who saved you without even being able to explain what he saw? What he felt? What he knew? I still don't have the answer. But every morning after that, before I touch the doorknob, I always look at Milo first. If he's calm, I leave. If he hesitates, I wait. And I don't question it. Not anymore. Because that day, that terrifying, confusing, unbelievable day, taught me something I'll never forget. Sometimes animals know things we don't. Sometimes their instincts scream before ours can even whisper. And sometimes They save us without needing a single word. Milo saved me, and I will spend the rest of my life grateful for the quiet, mysterious intuition of a small cat who refused to let me take one step out the door. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you to appreciate the silent heroes who live with us, watch over us, and protect us in ways we may never fully understand. And if you stayed until the end, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please consider subscribing, sharing this video, and sending it to someone who loves animals as much as I do. Their story might inspire someone the way Milo inspired me. Thank you so much for being here. See you in the next one.